evening. I'm Charlie Foyer, Newtown resident, and I appreciate the motion because that's the appropriate culmination to all this discussion. And I had more diligence than I did with the National Traffic Safety Bureau, and I bet you don't want to hear them because they support completely this. The one question I just have, and I've got to know the answer, is how does PennDOT take into account a study on speed when it's determined that the average speed was roughly 40 miles an hour in a 35, when the request is to go to 35, how that makes it acceptable? I don't understand that, how the findings of your study don't create the situation where we're requesting to go to 25 miles an hour and you find that the average speed's 40. And given all the statistics, the death rates and the actual experiences at this crosswalk, and actually I have statistics that show you that this time of year it gets even worse because of daylight, less daylight. And I have all kinds of statistics, but I couldn't understand in that speed study why it was determined there was no need to lower the speed limit because people were going 40 miles an hour. And you're right, at 40 miles an hour, it's an 80% death rate of pedestrians. And we've had 2 deaths. And you didn't count the resident who was crossing his children, and you just heard about someone else, 10 cars. That don't stop for that. There's got to be the speed limit and the flashing beacons. And you're absolutely right, it's strobes that make them beacons. So, I mean, I think the issue's resolved, and I sure hope so. Thanks very much.
Okay. Thanks for your comment.
All right, I'm going to read a statement here. Good evening. My name is Mark Yorkman. I've lived in Newtown Walk since 2020, so only 2 years there. I'm a retired aerospace engineer, but I am an owner of a Newtown Township-based technology and aerospace engineering consulting company. I'd also like to acknowledge that my son, who's a transportation program manager for the Southern Alleghenies Planning and Development Commission in central Pennsylvania, studied the crosswalk with me when he was visiting me over Thanksgiving, and he helped contribute to some of what I'm going to say tonight. Valerie approached me, she's not here right now, several months ago and asked if I could lend my engineering and problem-solving expertise to our crosswalk issues. After spending time studying this, as well as accompanying Representative Warren and Supervisors Fisher and Mack to view the crosswalk firsthand, there is no doubt that the current situation is unsustainable and indefensible, and the safety of all our citizens, adults and children, is clearly at risk, not just people in Newtown Walk. Failing to resolve this situation in the most expedient manner really would meet the legal definition of negligence, in my opinion. We were very encouraged to see the township install radar data collection device on Tower Boulevard, pointing towards the crosswalk. The sensor was installed for, I believe, a 5-day period. Because science and mathematics actually matters, when attempting to make a data-driven decision here, the following tenets of data sampling, amongst many others, must be upheld to get statistically significant and actionable results from such a sensor. Number 1, the sampling process must measure parameters that are relevant to the problem being addressed. Number 2, the samples must be randomly selected without bias to have high probability representing the full population. And the sample set must be sufficiently large to meet statistical tests. Our issues at this crossing are not about vehicle speed, only about vehicle speed, but also pedestrian volume, pedestrians getting trapped in the inadequate and unsafe refuge area, pedestrian close calls with vehicles, vehicles illegally bypassing stopped vehicles, which we just talked about. Those cars would register as being maybe only 20 miles an hour, and they would drive the data down, but they're death machines. Poor lines of sight, significant changes in the safety due to season, time of day, and weather conditions. All of these conditions represent clear and present hazards. Our goal is to allow the pedestrians to expeditiously get off the road with reasonable traffic calming methods. PennDOT has criteria for traffic impact studies. Quoting from PennDOT's policies and procedures for transportation impact studies document, at intersections, pedestrian activity as well as pedestrian accommodation should be recorded and reflected in the transportation, or in the TIS, the impact study. If regular pedestrian activity surpasses 15 pedestrians per hour, is observed at mid-block crossings, which is what we have, in the study area, these locations should be counted as well. We believe that a manual collection of pedestrian experiences at this crossing is imperative to really understand this issue. It's not all about speed. Manual studies are a thing. They are done by PennDOT, and they do accept us doing that. Without that specific pedestrian data, we unmistakably violate the principle of data relevance. The sample is not addressing our issue. It's addressing only speed and perhaps volume. In addition, at least one of the days that was measured, Council Rock was on a modified schedule, so likely the sample that was taken did not meet the criteria of randomness without bias. Note that PennDOT will consider deviating from the 85th percentile standard they typically use for setting speed, especially if a local official's request, although PennDOT will always make the final speed determination. Please note that 85% percentile value means that 15% of the cars, 1 out of every 6.7 cars, is driving above that speed. And that speed is already above the speed limit. So that would probably translate into at least 1 car per minute going, in that 15% zone. Also note that PennDOT publication 212, which is the official traffic control devices manual, the speed limit should be within 5 miles per hour of the average 85th percentile speed, except the speed limit may be reduced up to 10 miles per hour below these values if one or more of the following conditions are satisfied. And condition 1 is a major portion has insufficient stopping sight distance if traveling at the 85th percentile speed or the safe running speed. In our opinion, we believe this criterion for reduction is clearly met. And we have to be real careful about just measuring the distances and the sight distances. The subtended angle, when you view that, is extremely small. As an engineer, adhering blindly to standards without applying the standard of common sense is dangerous. To quote Rear Admiral Grace Hopper, who's a very well-known innovator in the U.S. Navy many years ago, the most dangerous phrase in the language is, "We've always done it that way." Those are my comments. We graciously thank the supervisors and the engineering firms for consideration of our concerns. We look forward to expeditiously working with you and shoulder to shoulder, hand to hand, to try to fix this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
My name is Cynthia Newton. I'm a resident of Braintree. I'd like to thank the supervisors for taking this on. This has been an ongoing issue for us for many years. I myself have almost been hit by several cars on both Lower Dolington Road and Newtown-Yardley Road. And I'd just like to add that there is a pedestrian-initiated strobing light on Langhorne-Yardley Road near the middle school and the ball fields, and it is very effective. The overhang lights that are on Lower Dolington Road, as Ms. Snyder said, are completely ineffective. Everyone ignores them. In today's day and age, we have more distractions than ever. People are looking at their cell phones, they're talking on their cell phones, they're looking at maps and things, and we all know that a line of sight at 40 miles an hour is a lot different than at 25 and 30 miles an hour. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Greg Zakowski. I spoke several meetings ago. I wanted to thank the supervisors for their consideration, and especially, I really wanted to thank the supervisors for the reality and looking at the reality of the situation. I work for a commercial real estate developer. We deal with engineers all the time, engineering reports, traffic studies, etc. It's a collection of data. I have lived in Newtown Walk for 12 years. I'm on the road at 6:15, it's dark, you can't see. There aren't too many cars out. But I especially wanted to thank the supervisors and also Representative Warren for coming out during rush hour. Because the Newtown-Yardley Road, Washington Street is an alternate to the bypass. And when you were talking about the speed limits, coming off the bypass, coming into the borough, the speed limit's 45. It changes at the Lutheran Church to 40. And then it changes at Rick Steele's at 35. And again, with the change in elevation, coming into the borough, you're about 6.5 feet. Coming out of the borough, you're 11 feet. But again, I wanted to thank you all for coming out, especially Dennis, Supervisor Mack, and Dennis coming back in the evening just to view the situation. And it's typical tonight, it's a foggy night. Traffic should be slowed, but it's not. So I thank you for all your efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Valerie Mahalik from Newtown Walk. I just wanted to thank you all. As you know, this has been an ongoing concern for our community and the communities surrounding. And as Cynthia said, the yellow flashing beacons work very well. I was actually up in Doylestown tonight, and I never knew in front of the courthouse they actually have the freestanding yellow flashing beacon, which I sent to the team, and how well they work, because it was very foggy up there, a lot of traffic around 6:30, and it worked really well. So I think this is a really good way to keep people safe, and we thank you for your efforts in working with us.
Thank you.